portrait of them. All right. Let's get updated on what's going on with COVID-19 in our state of Michigan with Dr. Daniel Havlichek from Michigan State University College of Human Medicine. Dr. Havlichek, good to have you with us again. Thank you.
My pleasure.
Let's start in your own backyard there. Michigan State has quarantined its students. What can you tell us about the situational outbreaks there and how it reflects perhaps on how college campuses are potentially explosive spread zones?
Yeah, it's obviously not Sparty's finest hour here, but as you probably saw, the number of cases that happened in COVID-19 basically quadrupled or quintupled after college opened up again. And they were mostly cases that came from, the areas that were quarantined, 5 or 6, maybe more, fraternities, sororities, and apartment complexes. And basically, people had parties and spread the disease. And, I wasn't there, of course. I would say probably weren't wearing masks. But it was a bad situation, and these people are now quarantined.
Yeah, I mean, isn't essentially all the student housing essentially quarantined now for 2 weeks?
Well, there's I guess different levels of the quarantine. This is a quarantine order from the county health department, and these folks could get cited for misdemeanors and charged and kind of legal things. Right. The university wants all the students to be, self kind of quarantine, not going out, no direct classroom attendance other than those classes which are necessary, like medical school or something that way. But that's a slightly different level of quarantine. This is more on the legal end.
Right. So is the problem with colleges irresponsible behavior or the proximity of people? In other words, if they were wearing masks and washing their hands and observing social distancing, would colleges be any more innately dangerous than any other portion of society?
I think that's a good question. We do know that when people come together from all over, such as the military, we see this, a fair bit with that. They bring their diseases with them, and then when they get into a population that is susceptible, there's rapid spread. College dorms are the same way. We've had meningitis outbreaks on college campuses, and other kind of things too. So your question's a good one. I suspect that it's a little bit of both. That having everybody come in does increase probability of contracting an illness. I also think that, young people being young people, maybe don't follow the social distancing as much as they ought to.
And passing around the little red cups of beer probably doesn't help either.
That does not help. And as you know, this is not a isolated incident for colleges around the United States.
No, it's happening everywhere.
It's all over.
Yeah,
it's basically all over, and it's unfortunate.
What is, I look at the calendar, and I'm going to take a break for traffic, but you can think about this question. When does flu season officially kick off if it hasn't already, and what are the predictions for flu season on top of COVID? While you mull that question, here's a quick look at the traffic on 760.
This report is sponsored by Dell.
Dell's semi-annual sale is on, with up to 45% off business laptops and desktops with Intel Core processors, along with servers and electronics, all with free shipping. Speak to a Dell Technologies advisor at 877-ASK-DELL. That's 877-ASK-DELL, or visit Dell.com/business deals.
In Pontiac on M59 eastbound between Saginaw Street and North Perry Street, that part of the highway closed right now due to construction. The construction scheduled through October 4th. Plan on delays. In Southfield, you're moving slowly on 696 eastbound between Telegraph and Lasser. And in Wayne County, an accident on the Southfield southbound just after Ford Road that has the right 2 lanes blocked. Now WJR weather first from the Weather Channel.
Mid-50s for tonight. Mostly sunny for Wednesday, hazy sunshine, a high of 80. Chance for showers Wednesday night. I'm Scott Larimore at the Weather Channel on News Talk 760 WJR.
Continuing with Dr. Daniel Havlichek. So what about flu season? And where do we stand with that? What are we expecting?
Yeah, well, flu season usually will start in October, but not very much. And it really starts to peak in the, late December, January, February time frame, and then, starts to taper off. Everybody should get their flu shot. It's still early enough that you can do that before the flu season will arrive. Whether or not this is going to be a bad flu year or a good flu year, quote unquote, I don't think anybody really, knows. I mean, I wouldn't hazard a guess one way or the other. The way guesses. Yeah.
I had been under the impression that flu season actually started a lot earlier than that. I had heard once that flu season technically started in late August and ran in the September, October, November, December more so than January, February. Was I mistaken, or are there two schools of thought on that? Or
I think the more common flu seasons come later in the year. You will find sporadic flu cases, now, but they're really pretty few and far between. The one thing that's kind of interesting, everybody likes to point to the 1918 flu, and that one came very early. That one came in October and November, and obviously there was no vaccine back then, but that was a bit of an aberrancy. It came much earlier than the others. So yes, it does come early sometimes, and when it did come that time, it was obviously catastrophic. But most times later.
But what are the particular threats with regard to COVID-19 and the flu? Like, how does one act as a conduit for the other, or an invitation for the other?
I guess what I would say is we don't know at this point exactly how that's going to play out. But obviously having two things wrong in your lungs is going to be a heck of a lot worse than having just one thing wrong.
So you could get both. You could get both at the same time, then.
Yeah, we've had some people that have had two respiratory infections, COVID, and something else, another viral infection that we've diagnosed, and so that is definitely going to be possible.
Shouldn't, in theory, though, that we're social distancing for COVID and things like that, shouldn't that kind of minimize the flu season in a way? If we're doing the things we're doing for COVID, wouldn't that help the flu down?
Absolutely. The same routes of transmission are going to be with flu, and the distancing, the washing your hands, masks, all that stuff. I agree. I think that is going to decrease the probability that you're going to spread flu, and I hope that's correct. I think it will be, but time will tell.
So when they talked about the second wave that was going to come in the fall, if it's not necessarily tied to the flu, what is it and what causes it?
Well, again, I think what we're finding is that there's a lot of people who can carry COVID-19 that are asymptomatic carriers. And that, I don't think anybody knew there was going to be a second wave for sure. People were concerned about it. But I think right now, some of what we're seeing is people that are totally asymptomatic, shedding the virus, spreading it to others, and then now we're seeing other people then become ill. So, I hope this second wave is going to be confined mostly to college campuses. This is going to be something the epidemiologists are going to have to, sort out and try to see, is there going to be a second wave short of this college campus problem? Mm-hmm. And, it's going to be a mathematical challenge for them, but, it's what they do, and I'm sure they'll do a good job.
If they came to you, and perhaps they have, and asked you about the risks for college football players to be playing their sport and living on campus, what would your recommendation be?
I, number one, have not been asked. Number two...
Well, I just asked.
I think the NFL and NHL and NBA and the professional teams are doing very strict monitoring and testing, and they've been fairly successful at putting on a product, so to speak, and not endangering the athletes. The college athletes, for some reason, it does seem to be different, whether it's their living environment or whether it's something else, I don't know. But the actual playing of the game, the practices, all that other stuff, if you can guarantee that people are truly negative, then they ought to be able to play the game. It's when they leave, I think, that things change and professionals are more
professional.
They're obviously just older,
and they also go home to their wife and kids in their individual house and not to a dormitory, and they're not tempted by frat parties and all the activities that the guys do, and they they just hang around a lot more with one another at college level than they do in the NFL. So it'll be interesting. So
it's not so much the actual
sport
game and the playing of the game, it's the environment that I think everything is happening in.
Finally, I want to ask you about the vaccines. There was some news report yesterday that said one thought that they might have something in October, which of course is going to make politicians very nervous, one way or the other. Where do you think we are realistically on vaccines?
Vaccines are making good progress. I think, and it's going to be something where you can produce an antibody that ought to be able to neutralize the virus. The question is going to be side effects, and you probably read that one of the vaccine trials in Europe had to be halted because of concern for side effects. I think you do need to go slow with vaccine research, make sure it's safe, and not try to get the cart ahead of the horse on something like this just to get a product out there. Overall, I think the vaccine is coming. There are over 100 vaccine trials going on right now, and I'm sure there'll be one of them at least will be effective. So I'm optimistic about a vaccine. October, I don't know. They have made great strides, faster than I thought they were going to. October's only a few weeks away. I think it's unlikely.
All right, Dr. Daniel Havlichek from Michigan State, thank you so much for spending some time with us. We appreciate all those answers.